since it is in between 10:30 and 10:35 Eastern time. The errands have been run, and I think the second cup of coffee is nearby. Because what that means, he's adjusted the brim of his hat. He's ready to go. It is that time for Thursdays with Niko.
What's going on, John? ATL, SDH family. What is up? It is Thursday. I'm ready to go.
What cup of coffee are you on, sir?
Numero dos.
All right. So, as we, and he's got the rave green out. He's ready to go. I see how this works. The big ceramic rave green mug. I know how this plays. We are. There was an article in The Guardian, before we get into what you thought of the first round of the playoffs. There was an article in The Guardian, and I don't know if you had the chance to see it. Graham Ruthven did basically an opinion piece. And the title of the piece is MLS's bloated, never-ending playoff format has been a failure. 18 teams entered in total. 62% of the 29 made the playoffs. He goes into that. Bigger problems with the new format, with the best of three, is he says the creation of a new best of three series between the wild card round and the conference semifinals caused confusion, not just among fans, but players too. Quoting John Tolkien, he says, we've seen a lot in the first games. The way teams go down 2 goals, and it's like we have to prepare for the next game. It's not like goals matter anymore. And so Graham Ruthven says that the bloated, never-ending playoff format has been a failure. What do you think about the bloated, never-ending playoff format, according to Graham Ruthven at The Guardian?
I mean, that's strong. that's running into the paint pretty hard. But I do agree that it wasn't great, and I did not like it. Would I call it a failure? I guess I don't really have enough data across audiences and players to really make that determination. But I will say that it's unpopular. That I feel like I can say. The comments haven't been positive, both from the audience as well as some players, right? I mean, I don't like to take out the dirty laundry of any player that's willing to share with me his thoughts on the league or its process. Brian Smetzer was one that on camera this week talked about, if it was up to me, we'd go back to just one game. I'm a believer that the 2-leg home and away is perfect, is the way the wheel is built, and there's no need to make it square-shaped or triangular. Just let the wheel be round, and I think it's the way of soccer, and it gives you an opportunity to have both teams play a home game. It gives you a need for you to watch the first game. It creates the suspense, and it captures the audience from game 1 to 2. The aggregate, I've always thought, is, for me, a good way to also keep teams interested in playing their style of play. I don't think the goals or the entertainment would have been any different. Would Columbus have played any different or score any less goals if it was a home and away? No, that's the way they play. Atlanta, that's the way they play. So I just think this whole idea that the extra game was going to create more open play and it was going to create more entertainment, I don't really know that was really reflected upon what we've seen across this 3-game series. And I do think that it has been confusing for the average or the not permanent and just temporary MLS casual fan, which is an audience that we should be trying to rail in a little more. And I think that they were the most displeased with this entire 3-game series process.
Well, and let me look at it from the perspective of other sports, where in the NBA it's either 5 or 7 unless you're into the playing round that we had in Major League Soccer. You had that wild card round, which we now have in the NBA. In the National Hockey League, it's best of 7s or best of 5s in the years past. And so people get that, they get that best of number that's further down the road. Then bringing in the idea of, say, all right, we're with this new TV carrier. We have this new network. We want to bring in casual fans. So let's do something different. Like I said, I'm just bringing the other viewpoint in here. I can go best of two aggregate score because, you and I, we've been around the game a couple of rotations around the sun. We know that that's a part of the deal. I can go one-offs, and that's where we are from this moment forward for Major League Soccer. But what you're trying to do, and we did the math on this also, but I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to create episodes of a television series.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're doing with Apple. And I think the math, if everything played out, you got 33 episodes of a television series for a new network, a new carrier, trying to bring in new audiences. And I think that aside from that, if you did aggregates and did two all the way through until MLS Cup final, I think you only played two less games. It was like 33 matches to 31 if you went aggregate and then one final. 33 if you did threes and then ones all the way through. I would sit here and suggest that Apple's trying to create episodes of a television series and to create as many of those episodes as possible to bring folks in under the tent so they can sit there and look at what's going on, as confusing as it may be to those of us who and stare at other sports. That's what I would say in return to what you're thinking here.
Yeah, but I think that the casual fan that MLS should be trying to get is more in a global, I already love soccer aspect, right? I mean, of course you want to get your in-between sports, right? That they follow baseball, they follow NFL, and that's a limited audience. But yes, that would play to their understanding of things. But globally, soccer is well known, and with 90 plus players called into FIFA action this week, it tells you how global it can be. And Ecuador wants to come watch MLS because of their players. Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, whatever. All of these nations are willing to spend money or watch MLS in some sort of way. And by giving them a series of three, it makes you kind of wonder, why did it do it so differently, and why is it so odd, and why is there no aggregate in general? But I do get it, right? Everybody wants the headliners, right? You get three different headliners. You hope to accomplish maybe more of a rivalry between teams because it's three games and there's going to be pushing and shoving, and you have a lot more storylines per game. But again, I don't know if I would go as far as to call it a failure, but I don't think it was as popular as there was hoping that it was. And I personally did not like it.
All right. So Michael Head on the Twitch pitch says, the current playoff structure discounts the regular season and rewards mediocrity. Over 60% of the teams made the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, but that's set up on a lot of formats, to be quite honest. Anytime that you create and that's really the big argument here in the global aspect of soccer is, do I play a full-on just points all season long and create the fact that the regular season does mean something because I got to win every game, because just like EPL or La Liga, I need to get X amount of points throughout the entire year in order to get that crown? Or do I go with the other playoff, interesting, heads-off aspect like Mexico and South America and other countries? So it's really the way that works. So the playoff format is always going to allow teams that either choose games or have some mediocrity within the year to just barely get in, and then in whatever amount of games from the point you start the playoffs to that final, you do get rewarded for mediocrity at times. So it just happens. But I believe that either way, this format right now needs some tweaking, needs something done differently. It mainly has to do with maybe just making it more standardized from after the play-in or the wild card, whatever you want to call it. As soon as you get into the real playoff format, all the way down to the semifinals, and then the final, maybe one-off, neutral zone, whatever you want to do. But that in between needs to all be standardized, in my opinion.
All right, and before we go, I do want to talk about CONMEBOL. So remind me of that before we go. I did want to, because we got full CONMEBOL later today, starting at 3:00, with 5 matches. And if you can find if you can find a carrier or a VPN, you can probably watch those starting at 3 and going all the way through 7:30. So I want to get into CONMEBOL before we go as well. What do you think of round number 1 on the whole? Now that everybody's in the barn and into an international window, what do you think of round 1 of the MLS playoffs?
I think there's been very little upsets. I think the home field advantage has carried weight. I do believe that those that needed to be moved through and the better teams did go through. The matchups are very interesting. I love the way things got set up. You have the historic teams like the Sounders going against the Hollywood kid that has been trying to obviously and has done a great job at getting all of the lights on them. They're the reigning champs. There's some animosity and rivalry between these two teams. We go back to that famous semifinal or final of the Western Conference in Banc, California, where the Sounders were the underdogs. Nobody thought they could do it. They beat LAFC at home, and then they move on to win MLS Cup. These two teams have always had a little bit of a rivalry, right? Because of kind of the way they approach being the new expansion team and who the Sounders are. So I really like it. Niko's last dance. What's going to happen with Raul Ruidiaz? Vela's last dance. What's going to happen with Vela? Really like that. I think the Houston Sporting Kansas City is interesting. Sporting Kansas City was dismissed by everybody. We all thought they were dead. They were the zombies. Yeah, me too. It's all right. We thought Peter Berbice was going to be gone. This team is out and done. And yet here they are. They have some momentum. They beat their rival and the best team in the Western Conference. They got the comeback player of the year in Polito. Saloui looks good. Russell looks vintage. I mean, this team is very good. So I like that storyline. And on the east side, you got a lot of similar aspects because you have the Union, who is more of a historic team. They got a long process. They've been there, done that against Cincinnati, who is a newer expansion team who was really awful when they first started. But now with some good players, some money well spent, they were kind of the team in the S, the team in the entire MLS. They're the Shield winners. So because of that, you kind of have those similarities. And on the other end, you got Columbus, the entertainment team, the one that I want to watch. They just had a shootout completely against Atlanta. They beat them out. They just outpunch Atlanta, and then they get through. And how that's going to play out, I'm very interested in watching. You got an Orlando team that's going to push Columbus to their limit. Columbus is not going to give them a small sequence where anything's easy. And that's going to be fun to watch. You got the puncher against a really good counter puncher in that matchup. And I want to see how that plays out. So I love the matchups, love the soccer level that we've seen so far. So I'm excited.
When you look at some of the awards, you mentioned Alan Pulido as the comeback player of the year. And it was close. You had Miles Robinson second, Joao Paulo finishing third in that vote. What did you do for defender of the year, Miazga, Parker, or the third individual there?
Obviously I went with Emer Gomez Andrade. I feel like it's really hard for me to give credit to a process and to a system that does not reward the best player in the category. I'm going to go ahead and say this to you, to SDH family, to everybody who wants to listen. I feel like the system is flawed, and there's got to be something done, because if we're rewarding a miscongeniality pageant, then let's continue to do what we're doing. It seems like the player vote went to whoever had the most friends in the league, with Tim Parker winning that vote. and then a guy like Yemer Gomez Andrade getting 3% in that voting, I think that's irrational. So Miazga, I'm not discrediting what he did. I know that he is in the best team in the MLS. That carries some weight. He was in a very good system with some very good players as well, but he played 500 or plus less minutes than Yemer Gomez Andrade. The stats don't match up because in interceptions, he didn't even have a third or a half of what Yemer Gomez Andrade did. Yemer, I'm sorry to say, but defending in space, defending in the box, better than Matt Miazga. You won goals because that's what people sometimes look at in stats. Also, even if he's just defender of the year, he has a couple of goals. So I just don't get how you give Miazga this reward or this prize, this award, this honor, and you dismiss and leave at third place, a guy that's been dominant and not just this year, but has been dominant since he arrived in MLS. So whether we need to create a system where you vote in 6 players and then there's a governing body that selects out of those 6 the true best defender out of those 6. Maybe that's something we need to do, because I know that we need the marketing and we need MLS fans to be involved. So we want to see their vote. Who are you voting for? Fine. That's okay. Let's do it. But let's have a governing body that really selects the best players, so we're rewarding the right people and not just the one that can get the most votes.
All right, so here was the breakdown in the award. And Miazga finished second in the player vote behind Tim Parker. Yeimar finished a distant third. And those 3, and there were apparently a lot of players that got votes in this, because looking at the players, those 3 only accounted for 38% of the entire vote. Tim Parker, 19%. Matt Miazga, 16.5%. Yeimar, 3.82%. Club vote was about 35% of the vote as well total. Matt Miazga, far and away by the clubs, finished 26.83%. Yeimar finished second. Tim Parker, distant third. Matt Miazga in the media vote basically doubled Yeimar, 32.95, 16.76. Tim Parker finishes third. So that adds up to, and I don't know how 16, 26, and 32 end up at 25.45%. I don't know, but that's what this says. Tim Parker at 10.4, Yeimar Gomez Andrade at 9.3%. So it was a very close between a 2 and a 3. I would not have voted Matt Miazga number 1 for a couple of different reasons. And, when we've talked about Matt on the show ad infinitum ad nauseum for who he is and what he gets his yellow cards for, as opposed to what you should be getting yellow cards for. His yellow cards are for indiscipline instead of activity. And so for me, a part of that, I'm like, Matt Miazga, no. And then seeing when the awards popped up, I'm like, 3-game suspension from doing what he did. No, I'm not voting for that. And then for me, it would have been down to Tim Parker and Yeimar Gomez Andrade. And so that was why I wanted to ask you about the process and what you thought about Yeimar finishing third in this whole thing, because I don't know if we should push the vote back even further. I don't know when the deadline is, if it's like end of the regular season, what have you, when you're supposed to have your vote stamped by the postmaster or whatever. I think we ought to push the voting back instead of trickling out award, so we can actually have an informed opinion in these kinds of things and perhaps get things swayed to where folks don't win awards they shouldn't win.
I totally agree. And I hear the argument, well, you got the best defender and the best team. This is not a collective prize or a collective award. This is an individual award. So we're not going to give Yeimar a deserved honor because they weren't the Shield winners. That makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. They were talking about, well, Miazga has 10 clean sheets. Yeimar has 14, 16 if you count the playoffs. So, I just don't understand how you want to just sweep under the rug the fact that Miazga is just not as good as Yeimar this year. It's just not. Look at it whatever way you want. You know what? If you were to truly ask a player, what defender would he rather go head-to-head against and duel against in a header and in a one-on-one open space situation, they're going to say Yeimar if they're being honest. He's the faster, strongest, more dominant defender. and you see it in the stats. So I have no words other than I believe the system is flawed. If we're going to be excited and happy of just continuing to reward players because of how many friends they have in the league or what the fans want to do, then that's fine. That's okay. But I think that we should always provide awards in a league aspect to those that really deserve it. Simple as that.
And to your point, you mentioned that, okay, so if Matt Miazga is responsible for 10 clean sheets, that to me means Roman Celentano should be Golden Glove out of the Eastern Conference and not necessarily Matt Miazga as Defender of the Year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's funny because that's what they were saying about Stephen Fry. Well, he led the league in clean sheets. Oh, but it was the defense. It wasn't Steph, right? It was the defense. Okay, so you didn't give it to the defense. You didn't give it to the goalkeeper. So what are we doing? What are we doing? I just don't understand it. And look, Stephen Fry is another player that's been, jaded and wrongfully not given a price in the duration of his career. I'm not saying this year. I think Berkey is fine, a very deserved award for what he did with St. Louis. But there's been times in the past where Fry's been by far the best goalkeeper, and he still doesn't get this award because, once again, we go to the voting and are you popular? Are you fun? When you look at a highlight reel of Stephen Fry, is it as fun as others? No. So what are we doing best highlight reel or are we doing most productive goalkeeper? So it all goes back to the exact same point. I believe that the system is flawed. Is it meaningless? Because if it's meaningless, then all right. I will take that from you fans or whoever's watching this. You think it's meaningless? It's not a big of a deal. Niko, why do you look like you're about to have an aneurysm? Maybe. But at the same time, these players, they use this for purposes of getting contracts. They use this as just a reward for what they do on a day-to-day basis. So I believe that it should be given more of a serious process. That's all I'm asking.
Oh, brother, last thing I need is for you to get an aneurysm on this show because, you're here every Thursday. What would I do at Thursdays with the last half hour of the show if you had an aneurysm? So let me get this straight. So if you're not giving it the award to a defender, it's because of the keeper. And if you're not giving the award to the keeper, it's because of the defender. Did I get that right?
That's what the arguments I've heard about why Stephen Fry. I mean, it's just the defense. And so then what happens now? The defender, maybe it was the keeper. I don't get it. There's just no real point. But it all goes back to what I believe is just that the Seattle fan base is very secluded here in the Pacific Northwest and maybe not overall. And the players, again, maybe go for their boys or what's more popular and not necessarily who is better or not. So I just don't think that you're really getting the right people for the awards that you're given here. You could even argue, I mean, look, Pulido did fantastic and he put this team on his back when he came on and he got a lot of goals and everything. But I could also make an argument for JP being absolutely fantastic this year and the minutes he played, the miles he put in, the space he covered, how key and valuable he's been for the Sounders, who were the top team in the West. So I just think that a process should be more than just again, a miscongeniality type of situation where, the coolest, the nicest, or whoever got more boys is getting all the votes, because I just think it's wrong. And by the way, you know what? I'm not even going to say it. We'll leave it at that.
Go. You were.
No, I mean, this whole this aspect about popularity. I talked to a coach within MLS, obviously no names, because it's out of microphones, it's off the mics, and it'd be wrong of me, but he's like, yeah, man, I just don't understand how this thing works, and it does seem like it's a popularity contest and not who the best player at his position is.
All right, another couple of minutes here with Niko Moreno. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving. What are you doing next Wednesday? First
off. Thanksgiving. So usually we get up early. My dad brings in a turkey that he's like marinated and did all this stuff with for like 3 days. And we bring it down here. We watch the Macy's parade, watch some football early in the morning. When there is some space, my backyard's decent size, so we do a little flag football thing between the family. And then we all just get together. My sister-in-law's family is pretty big. My parents, my sister. So it's about 28, 30 of us in my house. Have a lot of good food. My sister-in-law brings the hams. My dad brings the turkey. I do the drinks. I do a signature drink every year, plus, of course, the sides of things. So, yeah, that's kind of the Moreno family aspect of Thanksgiving.
All right. So let's talk CONMEBOL before you go. Another couple of minutes here with Niko Moreno, our friend at El Rolo and W Pulso Sports in the Soccer Bar here on Thursdays with Niko, how we always wrap up our Thursday show. So CONMEBOL, once again, that they are in Thunderdome starting this afternoon at 3:00. The Thanksgiving side dishes, since we're in that month of November, it's Thanksgiving side dishes and not juice boxes. So the Thanksgiving side dishes have Bolivia favored at home against Peru at 3:00. 5:00, Ecuador a slight road favorite at Venezuela. 7:00, Argentina, big on the minus side, hosting Uruguay at a minus 167.
It's a good game.
7:00, Colombia, road. They're a home underdog as Brazil comes to town at a plus 124. Colombia's at a plus 248. 7:30, Chile on the minus side, hosting Paraguay at a minus 120. Paraguay at a minus 385. What do you think about this round of qualifications later today, starting at 3:00?
I think you got a couple of great games. Starting with Argentina, Uruguay. I mean, you got the stars, you got the masterminds behind it there. Of course, the acquisition or the new leadership there in Uruguay kind of makes things very interesting for that one. Uruguay hasn't been great. That first round, they were irregular, and they had some good games, but some difficult results as well. But I still think that's going to be a good one. That's Clásico. Those two teams are going to go at it. Argentina obviously leading CONMEBOL. They have, honestly, the best team in general census, but it's going to be a good one. Colombia, Brazil, that's another good one. Colombia, it might be the first time Colombia has a real chance to beat Brazil at home, something they haven't not been able to do. I thought that they called up some really good players. How they're going to face this game might kind of give you a sense of how the game will go. Is Colombia going to put their most offensive team out there and really go out and try to put Brazil, who has a lot of big absences in this one without Neymar and other players that are important for that team? Are they going to do that? Or are they going to be a little bit more conservative and try to maybe oven out this team, right? Barranquilla's hot. You're going to want to maybe get them tired and play it a little bit more conservative. But I'm interested in how that's going to work for Colombia, because they have all of the right pieces this time around. Luchito Diaz, by the way, his dad was finally released after he was kidnapped for, I think it was 14 days, 12 days. So that was pretty nice. He might play with a chip on his shoulder. So that's going to be real good. Can Borré be as good as he was in a couple of moments last FIFA window, perhaps? Can James have brilliance and bring this creative play regardless of his age? So that's going to be a good one. I think you should definitely, if you're going to watch a game today, 4 p.m. Pacific, that's another one that you want to check out, not just the Argentina game. Venezuela, Ecuador is interesting. Ecuador, I've said that they've been kind of asking to be this black horse team in CONMEBOL, but they haven't really put it together necessarily always. So depending on this game and how they play out, they already started off in the minus side because of points that they were not given or they were taken away. So that's going to be a good one. Peru, Bolivia, it's okay. And Chile, Paraguay, not as interesting. But if I had to pick two games, it would be Colombia, Brazil, and Uruguay, Argentina.
So the 4:00ers for you, the 7:00ers for us on the East Coast. Those two tonight is what you're hunting.
100%. Yep, those are by far the two best games. And honestly, it could be just about anybody's game in either one of those, right? I can't say I wouldn't be surprised, but because it would be surprising that Colombia was going to beat Brazil because they haven't been able to do it. But if they're going to do it anytime, it'd be this one. And the Argentina-Uruguay, regardless of the ups and downs that Uruguay has had and how good Argentina's been, that's a Clásico. That's played at a different level. It's going to be physical. It's going to be good. So, yeah.
All right, so we're heading into match day 5. So here's your standings. Argentina, they've won their first 4. They haven't given up a goal. Uruguay is part of the madness at 7 points because Uruguay, Brazil, Venezuela all have the same record at 2-1-1. All have 7 points. You've got to go to goals scored, and because goal difference is the same. Goal difference is +3 for everybody. Goals scored is the next one. Uruguay has 8 goals scored, Brazil 7, Venezuela 5. So that gets you to number 5. Colombia drawn 3 of their first 4. They're at 6 points. Ecuador, you mentioned the penalty. They're at 4 points right now with a +1 goal difference. They're in 6. All of those folks would qualify. If it started today, 7 is Paraguay. They'd go into the qualifier. They're at -1 on goal difference. Chile's at -3. They're in 8th. Peru is at 1 point. They have not scored a goal in their first 4 games. And Bolivia has not gotten a point in their first 4 games. They've only scored 2. And given up 11. So that's your CONMEBOL preview because it is Thunderdome, and if you can watch it, it's always fun to watch. What's going on with Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports?
Soccer Bar is going to be in about 40 minutes or more, 9 o'clock Pacific. We're going to be talking about a lot of these games, right? Uruguay coming in from a big win against Brazil, obviously, but like I said, there's been some inconsistencies with Nunez and that midfield. So we're going to talk a little bit about Uruguay. We're going to talk a little bit about Brazil. We're going to talk MLS players, 94 plus, called up to different places in the world for their national teams. I'm going to talk a little bit about Josh Atencio getting called up for the Olympic pre-games of Paris. We're going to get into basically some surrounding MLS things that are going on, Red Bulls and other teams around that are going to have some vacancies for next year. So we're going to put kind of a face to each team of what it could look like. So that's going to be fun. So go ahead and check it out. Pulso Sports, everything that has to do with the Sounders preparing for this LAFC matchup. Brian's message says we're not underdogs to any team. Hear what he said about LAFC, gives him a lot of respect, but you could tell that he's comfortable, confident in his team. Seems like morale is high. So check that out at Pulso Sports.
What he said, as always, it's great to catch up with our friend Niko Moreno out there in Seattle. Be safe, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving. And may the flag football and the touch football be in your favor, and may the food be fantastic, and agree with you. We'll catch up soon, my friend.
Absolutely, my friend. I'll try to burn those calories before I take him in and pack him in the rest of the night. But I really appreciate you. Thankful for this show, for your audience, for your friendship. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
You well, my friend, and we will figure it out. Come on Wednesday. Why don't you crash the party next Wednesday leading into Thanksgiving? Why don't you do that?
You know what? I might. I definitely might. I'm definitely taking some time off, so I might be just hanging out. I'll try to be awake, and yeah, I'm down. Well,
or we'll tape something. We could tape something too, and then we can run that on Thanksgiving. How about that?
You know what? We could do Wednesday. I could probably do Wednesday.
All right. Well, keep me posted if you want to tape something when you're more awake that will play on Thanksgiving. We could do that because I ain't doing a show Thanksgiving because I got to be in a car. So if we tape something later in the day on Wednesday, we run it on Thursday, and we do Thursdays with Niko on Thursday while you and I are doing our Thanksgiving stuff. We could do that too. I pose those options to you, sir, for next week.
All righty, man. We'll figure it out. But either way, I'm sure I'll be back next week, no matter what. So I appreciate you, my friend. Have a good day.